Hi, Sal. How are you?
Good. How is everybody?
Very, very well. Do you want me to call you sir, the French way, Monsieur Salvador, Senor Salvador?
I think Sal is sufficiently good, right?
Awesome. How is life treating you? How is everything?
Good. Just busy, running from one place to the next.
I know, and I really appreciate you accepting my invitation. I'm very happy and thankful.
On the contrary, it's always a pleasure to support good friends, and I like to see you're doing your thing.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And by the way, congrats on becoming, I think, professor in Northwestern University.
Thank you. I've been teaching for a few years, so
Oh,
I've
nice.
been at UIC. I was at the John Marshall. Sorry, moving my phone around. I was at John Marshall for like 4 years before that. So yeah.
Oh my God. Well, how do you do
Yeah.
that?
Well, it's only one class. It's only one class, right? We have to have continued legal education. So we always have to be updated in what we do, excuse me, in the law, in what happens. And so this is a good way for me to keep up to date and share a little bit of my knowledge with these people who are looking to how do you deal with international clients. So that's, is what I do. So it's not so difficult
Beautiful.
to say.
That's really nice. So
Yeah.
what made me reach out to you is that I see you on social media. I know that you're someone who likes life. You like life, you like music, and
Right.
you're a lawyer and you're a professor. So I'm very curious. I like it because most of people, they are either into like too professional or like just too casual. So that's why I'm like, let me just invite Salvador, get to know him as a person.
Of course.
Um, and this podcast, like, it's the turning point. So basically, let's say, for example, first we'll start, like, if you really like what you do, like lawyer, for example, and what made you
Right.
choose to take that way, go study, like go to law school, and yeah, and then get to know you as a person. Like, now I give you, you can introduce yourself. I had just very brief introduction, but uh, you can introduce yourself.
Of course. Well, my name is Salvador Alfonso Cicero Dominguez, and I say the whole name because in Latin America we use both father and mother, right? And both my father and my mother had a lot to do with my success. So I'm
Beautiful.
also a dad. I have a daughter from a previous marriage, and that's the reason why I stayed in Chicago. So I think that first and foremost, we're all human beings, right?
Yes,
And what we do for a living is just one part of who we are.
definitely.
And so I think you're right in the sense that I am not the person that just fits squarely into one box.
Yes.
And it's really funny because let me tell you, I think stories better, right? The examples are always the best way
Yes.
to tell what's going on in one's life. So many years ago, a friend of mine was kind enough to nominate me to become chairman of the Human Resources Board for Chicago, right? And
Oh,
they were looking for an attorney. And my friend said, well, why don't we get an attorney and find a Latino that maybe could do this, right? So I get nominated. And Mayor Emanuel nominated me for that. And then now the new mayor again reappointed me. So I've been in this position for like 7 years.
wow.
And what we do is we do two very interesting things. One is anybody who loses their job in the city of Chicago goes
Yes.
before our board and we decide whether they keep the job or not, whether they violated the rules, they harassed somebody, or whatever, right? They
Yeah.
brought a gun to the workplace, or they did
Oh, wow.
drugs, or all kinds of stuff. We also used to deal with all of the police candidates. And
Oh,
we
wow.
actually give out the police awards and the fire department awards,
Awesome.
which is something I didn't even know. I didn't even know this board existed when I got nominated, right? I had to learn about it. And we're basically administrative law judges. I do this job once a month, right?
Oh, wow.
So, it's something I've been doing now for a long time, and I've learned to do it. And I have other commissioners. We all read the cases, and then we issue our decisions, right?
Yeah.
And there is actual hearing officers. So it's a very formal thing. One day, I showed up at the office before a hearing, and my assistant at the city said, Chairman, there is a rumor going around about you. And I thought, oh my God, like what happened, right? I thought it was something really bad. And she said, somebody told me that you ride motorcycles. And I had my
Oh
suit
my God.
on and my
That's
helmet, literally had my helmet in my hand when she said this to me.
like,
And I looked at her like, yeah, that's how I got here. If I free parking in the summer, why wouldn't I ride my motorcycle?
I love that. That's great.
Yeah. So it was just really weird. And like, oh, so you're an attorney, you can't ride a motorcycle. I'm not the only attorney who rides motorcycles.
Yeah.
I particularly don't think it's very weird.
Yeah.
But it kind of exemplifies how people have an image of who you are
Mm-hmm.
and what you do. Um, right. And so as you know, we also work in the fashion industry, right? So we support the Runway Latinx, formerly known as Latino Fashion Week.
Oh,
And
wow.
there's a
I'm not surprised, by the way.
and
You see
there's
your
there
profile,
is
very elegant, all like fashion. That's
oh,
great.
you're so kind. Yeah, well, I do like fashion, but that's not the reason why we do it. We do it because there's a business purpose to it, right? We work with the companies. We're their corporate lawyers. Like people don't think when they see a runway show, right? They think, oh, the beautiful people and all those rich people sitting down. They don't think about the fact that behind that there is an entire industry. There are factories where people work.
Definitely.
There are contracts. There is,
A lot of work.
human resources, all kinds of issues that have to deal with that, right? And so we are lucky enough to work with some clients who do that, either who
Nice.
produce clothes or who have modeling agencies, discrimination, all kinds of interesting
Wow.
things. So that's something else. And then you asked about the music, right? So I
Yeah.
think well, I studied music since I was a child, right? I love writing music, and if any of you follow me on Instagram, you'll see my songs here
Yeah.
and there.
No, that's great.
So
I love it. It's very. I'm sorry for interrupting you. I'm just
no, no,
excited.
no.
Like I saw you like singing because as you mentioned, people tend to just like have a certain image of a lawyer. For example, a lawyer is
Right.
someone with a suit who's like too serious, and so you have a motorcycle, you sing. That's awesome. Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, I started studying music since I was 9. My mother got her job through music, so my mom and my father both were in the Foreign Service of Mexico, which is how I ended up in the U.S.
Then
as well. I eventually joined the Foreign Service, so I was a diplomat for the first 8 years of my career as an attorney. I worked for the government of Mexico, then moved back to Mexico, and so in my family, it was very typical that everybody had to learn the piano or sing or something, right?
wow, nice.
So that's how I started, and then I started learning composition, and I love to make up my own music. And so if you go in there, you'll find my songs in Spanish and in English.
Yeah, I watched them. I really like them. And
Thank
you,
you.
music I think is very important. I also have a daughter, and I want to teach her piano. I feel that music just makes you a better human. More sensitive, more artistic. So that's very impressive.
Well, I think, thank you. I think that music, I read somewhere that music expresses what words cannot, right?
Exactly.
Sometimes, yeah. So for me, of course, all my music is cathartic, right? I
Yeah.
have a breakup, I write about it. See
Nice.
some injustice, I write about it. I fall
Yeah.
in love, I write about that. I have a daughter, I write about it. So
Oh, it's
it's
beautiful.
my means of expression. Some people paint, some people write.
Of course.
Um, and we deal with a lot of positive people, but also, in the legal field, we see a lot of negativity. We see both the best side of humankind and also the worst side. We see
Yeah.
greed, we see violence, we see a lot of things. And because of that, I think that generally lawyers tend to have a very active rhythm of life.
Yeah.
Um, we all work very hard, right? Like right now, you can see I'm in the office, right? I could have done the interview from home. So in the morning, I'll tell you about my day, right? Got up, made
Yeah.
my bed. Now I have to make my bed because I teach my daughter, she has to make her bed.
That's
So,
there is an entire book about making your bed.
right. No, but yes, and that's very important, right? How you start your day.
Yes.
Um, Try to become a better person, right? Surround yourself with good people. And so I make my bed, and then I worked out, and then I started doing some things around the house, cleaned up real quick, I'll have to finish later, right, today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then we're doing the interview. Then I have to do some contracts, then do a little shopping, and then in the evening I'll get together with
Your friend.
a good friend and maybe a significant other, and then that's it. You know.
What time do you wake up, Sal? They say, yeah,
Well, it depends. It depends. I try to get up between 8 and 8:30 because court's not till 9, and now we're doing it on Zoom.
okay,
Um, but if I have to be at a closing at 9, I gotta get up at 7:30
okay.
because it takes me an hour to drive like Shamburg or something in the morning. So it
Wow.
depends. Unfortunately for me, I have a really hard time falling asleep.
Okay, so that's
So so my sleep cycle is from maybe like 2 to 8 or one
oh wow.
to it's like not from
Uh,
1 in the morning, right, till 8 in the morning.
so do
If
you
I could go to sleep at 10, I'd get up at 6.
exactly? So do you work sometimes like late?
Absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely. And so I think one of the things that's happened with my life that I never in a million years thought was going to happen is have a private firm. Okay,
oh
so
yeah.
when I was
Congrats on that. I know it's been going on a long time
yeah
since.
for
Oh,
14 years now, but
wow.
But what happened is when I was a child, I always dreamed of doing what my parents did, which was diplomacy, right? And so I
Yeah.
went to school, learned 4 different languages. And when I finished law school, went right into the foreign service and I had a stellar career there.
Nice.
And after 8 years in the service, the American Bar Association, which is based here in Chicago, invited me to run anti-human trafficking projects, right? So they
Wow.
had something called the Latin American Law Initiative Council.
Yes.
And I helped with a couple of other projects, but my project was a human trafficking project in Ecuador. So we designed the law, we created the system, and this is back in the day when nobody was working on this, right? This is like
Um,
almost 20 years ago that I did this work.
I'm sure
So,
your parents are proud of you.
well, unfortunately, my parents passed away many years ago. My mom died
Oh,
in 2010, and my dad died while I was mid law school. But they were both very happy with me.
I'm sorry to hear
So
that.
well, listen, that's the other reason why maybe you see me embrace life so much because um, I am very aware of the fragility of life, right? So, in my time as an attorney, I worked in death penalty work, I worked in human trafficking work. When we were doing human trafficking, it's not like people think. I mean, we actually got shot at once, right? I've been in 2 actual shootouts in my life, which you would have never thought about, right? Like
Oh
you
my
never
God.
think about what happens in real life, right? Especially an attorney. Why would you be in a shootout? Well, we got ambushed when we were working against organized crime in Ecuador. It happens.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
So when you've
I'm
been through
sorry.
stuff like that,
Yeah.
it changes your perspective of life because you
Hmm.
understand the fragility of life
Yeah.
and you turn to embrace it and try to live with more intensity.
You're right. You're right. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm a kind of the same, that's how I think too. I appreciate every single moment because, and I feel like our real life is that moment with that person. So you just embrace it and live it because you don't know tomorrow if this person is gonna be gone. So it's a very good lesson.
Absolutely, and things can change. So I was in that world, and then at the time, my wife did not want to move to New York or DC, where I had job offers doing international work,
Yeah.
and so I thought, okay, well, I'll try to salvage my relationship. I'll take the bar exam and open up the firm. So at first, I opened up the firm while I figured out what I was going to do.
Wow.
That was that was December 6th of 2006.
So how did you take that leap of faith? You're just like, okay, so tomorrow I'm gonna open a firm. How did that happen? How can you
Well,
describe it?
it never occurred to me that we would not be successful. It
Yeah.
really wasn't even a thought in my mind. But that's because I grew up in a household where people had this attitude. So my
Yes.
parents were very different people, right? So my mother was born in a wooden shack in a mountain, right? Literally.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she educated herself She had a privileged voice, so she said, "I like to sing opera." And if you met my mother's family, you'd be like, because they're mostly ranchers and people,
Yeah.
even though many are educated, even
Yeah.
the educated ones usually studied agriculture, and that's that world, right?
Yeah.
So my mother, this is in the 19, my mother was born in 1935, where women were not really encouraged to
Oh,
study at all. When she was 12 years old, she was told, you know what? I think you're done studying. At 12. So at 12 years old, my mom decided, I don't think so. I think I'm going to study music and I think I'm going to become a secretary, right?
oh my
So,
God, that's beautiful.
but can you imagine having to make this choice at 12? It's
Wow.
crazy.
That's
Today, it's
yeah.
crazy, right? So, so
Mhm.
she did that and she won this competition singing opera on the radio at 15. So she finished her secretarial school and won this competition, and she started being invited to sing at the well-to-do, people in Chihuahua, like the cheese and the dogs. That's where my mother was from.
Beautiful.
And so through that, she became a secretary. Then she got a secretarial job with the governor of her state, and then she went to Mexico City. And her best friend and her joined the Foreign Service of Mexico because they needed
Oh my
secretaries.
God. You need to write a book about your mom, Sal. Seriously.
Yes. So my mom was very a great inspiration because she was very hardworking, right? My father came from a wealthy family in Mexico. His great grandfather was in the Supreme Court. His other great grandfather was a consul general. His dad was a consul general. So
Wow.
obviously he went into the foreign service,
Beautiful
and
combination.
they met. Huh?
It's beautiful combination. Like your
Yeah, very
mom.
different. Very
Yeah.
different worlds, but they met. My father, of course, had a very like the rich kids who don't do anything with their lives,
Yeah.
right? For
I'm
a
sure
long time.
I'm sure he
Then he
learned
went,
a lesson. I'm
yeah,
sure he
yeah, but you know what? My mother was his fifth wife, fifth,
Oh wow.
and they made an amazing couple
It's
because my father was, more mature, and they had a project together. And
beautiful.
so my parents were always very encouraging of everything, and I would see them work together and achieve things together. Um, and so when you grow up in an environment like that, excuse me,
Yeah.
um, your dynamic is very different,
Yeah.
right? Because if you see your parents be successful or whatever it is, and it doesn't matter if they're millionaires or they have a little store, what
Yes.
matters is what drive do they have, right?
True.
And so they always had that. I didn't think about that till much later in my life.
Beautiful. Oh my God. That's such an inspiring story.
It is, but the thing is, I think for me, it's because I grew up in within that.
Yeah.
So I'll give an example. So when I first came to the States, I was 15, right?
Yeah.
So I was born here and I grew up in Mexico because my parents got married in San Francisco when they worked at the consulate there.
Beautiful.
So I was not happy about it at all. I hated the US. I didn't want to come to the US. It was the evil empire as far
So
as I was concerned.
was it like you didn't get along with the kids or the environment?
No, 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 no. Before I came, because I was a very left-leaning Mexican kid of the 80s. That was like this was the Iran Contra. We had the wars in Central America. We were and I was raised very anti-American, right? Even though I was American, so I was born here. So when I come back here, I go to high school in New Mexico. My mom got a posting in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And so, I look for the things that were familiar to me, the choir. I joined the speech team because I thought I need to speak better English. Maybe I'll do the speech team and the
Beautiful.
international club, right? Three things to start.
Nice.
So my friends in the English as a second language
Yeah.
class, right?
Yeah.
The
ESL.
ESL class,
Yes.
they were all Mexican. And me, I was Mexican, right? So one of them says, hey, why did you join that white club? And I'm like, white club? Like which club? The international club.
America.
International club.
America.
I'm
That's
from Mexico. Mexico is another country, so that's international. So his question didn't make sense to me.
yeah.
And then he looked at me like, oh, I guess you're right. And then eventually he's like, oh, you're in the speech team? I'm like, yeah. Well, but English is not your first language. I'm like, yeah, but how am I going to get better if I don't work toward
Yeah.
being better?
Definitely.
And they looked at me like, oh, okay. Like it was just,
So
I would do all these things that to me seemed like very logical.
yeah.
but because I had not been conditioned as a minority to think as a minority, which is something that's very peculiar about the U.S.
Beautiful.
That's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that we have that culture here because I constantly mentor younger people that want to become attorneys or that are young attorneys,
Beautiful.
and they sometimes we have to struggle with this, right? Like, oh, I don't know if I can do this job or that job because it seems really hard, or I'm not going to make enough money.
Mm-hmm.
So let me give you a little bit of context. Let's
Beautiful.
say somebody wants to be a public defender,
Yes.
right? A public defender in Cook County starts about $50,000. So people are like, "What do you mean $50,000? That's it." I'm like, "Well, the average American family
Yeah.
today still
Mhm.
lives on 45,000.
That's true. I looked that up. I was surprised.
In Chicago, the average is closer to 80,000 for a family.
Yeah.
But if you by yourself start at 50 and within 10 years are already making $100,000,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you can survive on $100,000,
Of course.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So this concept of I cannot be this thing I want to be because I may not make enough money
Yeah.
is in my mind is not true.
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever you do, whatever it is that you do, sell tacos or be an attorney or be a
Yeah.
nurse, if you're good at what you do, you're going to be okay,
Definitely. You're right.
right?
Wow.
So that's it. So I somehow manage to pay my bills every month. Still surprising to me, but I try to be proactive, right?
That's beautiful. By the way, there's something yet you mentioned. I really like it. The fact that you did not think of yourself as a minority. You were not conditioned as, okay, I am minority, then I have to do certain things and I cannot do certain things. Many people, like many of my followers, or I call them my friends, are from Morocco, new immigrant.
Right,
How can you make it? Like recently, I mean, I know we didn't meet for so many years, but
right.
yeah, my last job was as an HR manager. So I managed to have a good career. And many, like, especially ladies, like, and even like a youngster, they're like, how can you make it? You're Moroccan, you have an accent. How can you do that? I'm like, I've never thought of myself. I've never labeled myself. For me, I'm just a human, and there's only
Yeah.
the only difference between one person and another is just either you're lazy or you work on yourself. That's all. God
Yeah,
creates. Yeah.
and we have to realize when we make mistakes. Like, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. I have also at times, lost my drive, my drive to
Have
get
to.
to where I need to be. And there's always reasons to be better, right? So when you become a parent, then you realize if you really care about your kids, right? Some people they don't want to be too involved. I changed my entire life to be here. I left the foreign service, which is what I knew how to do,
Yeah.
and I reinvented myself into being an attorney. And it
Beautiful.
took me many years to really embrace who I am as an attorney, right? And what a great privilege it is to be an American attorney because we have a viable business, we have able to make a living, and we live well,
Yeah.
and so those are real blessings that you have to step back for a second and think to yourself, you know what? I have this opportunity. I cannot just sit here and be complacent.
Exactly.
And I've been complacent at times in my life. And I've had a couple of wake up calls um, to be better. So this morning I had a talk with a good friend about a new business that we're going to start. And so I'm an attorney, but I'm also looking at other opportunities and other things. So I
Beautiful.
think you have to always kind of keep going, right?
I love that. That's what I always tell my friends, like the same thing. When I go, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but just very
No, no,
quick.
no. We're
Um,
having a talk.
I'm always, thank you. So I'm always looking for new things to learn. Like right now, I'm going to school, but I kind of like music too. So I'm like, oh, maybe I need to do something in that area. I cannot, I cannot just stop. You just feel like stagnating water. I cannot do that. You need to be
Right.
like a river. You know, you always change. There's something new. I love that.
Yeah, that's, you always have to feed yourself with good energy. You have to build, I mean, as you evolve as a human,
Yes.
right? You prioritize different things, right?
Hmm.
And so before, I would go to 20 million events, but they didn't get me anything. I was just wasting my time meeting people, not a lot of valuable people.
Sure.
So, and I don't mean that in a depreciative way. I mean that in the sense that it's okay to meet all kinds of people, but then you have to pick the ones that are more akin to your interests and
Definitely.
keep those people close to you and
Yeah,
grow with them,
definitely.
right? So even with my friends, there were some people that I really liked, but at some point in time, they went one direction and I went a different direction, right?
Hmm.
So now I do business with like my best friend and I, right? So my best friend and I met dating twin sisters, which is very weird. That's how we met.
Wow.
Neither of us stayed
Wow.
with the girls, right? This was like 10 years ago.
Life.
And now we do real estate investments. And as an immigrant, because he's also in my exact same situation, his mom passed away, he has a daughter. We are each other's family, right? We are each other's family. If he has a problem, hey, if I have a problem, hey, help me out. So, and you've lived this as well as an immigrant, right?
Yes.
When your family's not here,
You need the good
you're
friend.
you need good friends, but
Yes.
not everybody's a true friend. So it takes you a while to figure out what your circle should be like, and it doesn't have to be huge. You just need two or three good people in your life.
Very, very, very true. When I just came here, you know, at that time when I was working, remember 2013, 14, I had
Right.
like, not like everybody's my friend. I was like every Friday, every Saturday, we are out doing something. But I don't know, after in my 20s, it was different. I had so many friends.
Right.
30s, then I'm like, I'm really lucky if I have one or two. Because you, as you mentioned, you just wanna keep like at this point, I only want friends that feel like family, you know? And
Right.
if
Of
it has to be
course.
one or two, that's it. I don't need so many.
But I will remind you of something.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna throw you under the bus with all of our friends.
Yeah.
You remember we went to a club? I invited you out with some friends who came to visit me from Mexico. You remember this, right?
Remember, yeah.
One time. So those guys that we hung out with, that was 2014, I
14.
think.
I
Okay. Those guys are still all my friends, and they were my friends when I was a child. So
Oh,
I have had those men in my life since I was 12. I'm 49 years old now.
oh my God.
And
Wow.
we talk every day. We have a WhatsApp group. We have two WhatsApp groups, one with the guys and the girls from back then, all married with kids and everybody happy birthday. In
Yes.
addition to all of us being friends on Facebook, we have our own private chat and WhatsApp. And then
Hmm.
I have just the guys on WhatsApp. And literally every single day,
Yes.
hey, how's everybody? Happy birthday,
Ah,
so and so.
nice.
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. I remember, to be honest with you, I don't remember everybody's face, but I know that they were diverse.
Yes, they were all very different. Yeah, three.
Yeah,
One was white, one was really dark. The other guy was, I mean, they're all Mexican, but they were very, yeah.
they were very nice. I remember them. I remember I went with Rahat at
Right,
that.
with Rahat. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my
So
God. It's been forever.
yeah, but also my friends are from all cultures here. I have friends that have, oh my God, from every country, Pakistan, India, Morocco, Europe,
Oh,
Romania. I'm sorry?
since our the audience are like 80% Moroccan. So do you have Moroccan friends here?
Okay. J'ai beaucoup des amis marocains.
Oh, that's très bien. Do you do you go to Ralph Lauren restaurant, like a Ralph Lauren restaurant in downtown? Do you go there
Where? Here?
in Chicago downtown? Ralph Lauren
I'm,
restaurant.
I'm having lunch there on Monday, actually.
Oh,
Oddly enough.
the manager is Morocco. Is Morocco? I forgot it. Abdul, I think, is my friend. Is
Oh, okay.
from Morocco.
All right. Well, I'll be milking that and maybe get a discount. Well, I also have Berber friends. I have a lot of but because I studied in France, and there's a lot of Moroccans, and of course, who hasn't read L'étranger, right? So, you learn about the dynamics of. I mean, Morocco is such an important part of French literature per se, right? And
Yeah.
they have their own thing in their own right. The Casbah, Casablanca, all these things that
Oh.
are like world renowned. Um, and so I don't forget, Mexican people know geography. When
Wow.
I Let me tell you something. So one of my best friends in the world
Yeah.
is a Mongolian woman, and we went to dinner last night, and I became really good friends with her because she went on a date with
Yeah.
a friend of mine who told me, I'm bringing this beautiful Chinese woman. And when she walked in, I said, where are you from? She's like, Ulaanbaatar. And I said to her, oh, well, where is your horse? Right? Like, the horses and the whole
Yeah.
Genghis Khan thing. And we both laughed. And they
Yeah.
all looked at us like, why is that funny? I'm like, she's not Chinese. She's Mongolian. You're like insulting her. That's like
Oh.
insulting to them.
Oh
They
my.
built the Great Wall of China to keep them out, right? So
That's so
I
funny.
think I think that's how we bond with a lot of foreign people because we came from another country, and
Hmm.
we have a view of the world, the perspective of the world and what it means is a
Yeah.
little bit different, right?
It's different, and you don't appreciate it until you come to this country. Like, um, well, I mean, I know you've been here for a very long time.
20 years, yeah.
20 years, yeah. Like for me, it's 10 years. But
Mhm.
when I just came here, I was in West Palm Beach, Florida. And every time I was hosted by this wealthy family. So all we did just get our nails done, go into nice restaurants. Um, and every time I go, people tell me, "Oh, wow, you look exotic. Where are you from?" I'm like, "Oh, thank you," because it was just like white neighborhood, and so I'm like, "I'm from Morocco." I'm like, and they're like, "Oh, wow, that's beautiful." I'm like, "Do you know where Morocco is? Is it near Mexico?"
Oh, that's funny.
I'm like, "All right."
I think you should have started with I am African. That's what you should have said.
That's what I do now. Like now, I'm like, I'm from Africa, and they're like,
Yeah.
"You don't look African." I'm like, well, because Africa has all colors.
Right. Right.
It's
Well, you know what? I think that yeah, I think that Americans really should learn more. But I'll say this, okay?
mhm,
Because I mean, I am an American, right?
sure.
And I went to college here and graduate school here, and I've been here half my life.
Yeah,
And I think that there are a lot of us, even though I am Mexican as well, because I carry, the Mexican passport, right? And I work for the Mexican Foreign Service.
nice.
But you don't have to be a diplomat. There is a lot of Americans who do know a lot that are cultured, and they know about
Of
geography and
course,
speak other languages.
definitely.
Um, it's not as rare as one might think, right?
Mm,
But I think there's also a stereotype that we have about Americans, right? But
that's
generally speaking, yes, people are very weak on geography.
you're right. You know what? I've noticed. Like I was in New York for a while. I lived there for a month. For a month, I'm
Hmm.
not really living, but
Right.
I've noticed that in bigger cities, people are more. They know geography at least. Other
Right, of course.
speak more languages. But then when you go south, like for example in Tennessee, Texas, um, I don't blame them so much. Like America is like 50 states. Morocco is the size of California. So
Right,
that's what I tell my friends from Morocco. I'm like, listen, I mean, it's very hard to even memorize every single state. So
right. Well, that is true about this. So, for example, in Europe, you have to speak various languages because if you drive 11 hours, let's say you start in Paris, and
yes,
you drive 11 hours
yeah,
to the east, you're going to cross 5, 6 countries,
hmm,
right?
yes,
In the US, if you live Chicago and you drive in ever 11 hours,
you're
you will reach New Jersey, maybe New York, if you don't find too much traffic, right? So it's the same country.
hmm,
Um, and the other thing of course, the dynamics here are different, right? Like with the Spanish. So I benefit from being Mexican. And I say I benefit because we are the largest Latino ethnic group in the US.
sure,
And so yesterday I was talking to this woman from Panama, and I was joking with her and I said, "Oh, so you're from one of those other Mexican countries?" You remember President Trump famously said that, right?
It's
Um,
so
and
funny.
and for them, it's very annoying. For them, it's very annoying that people are, "Oh, you're Mexican." I've also had discussions with people that are like, "Well, why do they have to speak Spanish? Like, why don't they just learn English?" And I said, "You know what? Yes, we should all learn English, but let's not forget that half of the United States
Mm-hmm.
used to be Mexico. And
That's
with
true.
that treaty,
Mm-hmm.
the treaty says the people who have a right to speak Spanish.
That's true. If is
So
it
people don't understand that their own history, right? That's frustrating for me. Sometimes here talking to people, they act like they don't even know their own history.
exactly? Yeah, many people don't, and I think it's very important to at least know your country's history, and then this country, since it's our country now, or at least it's my country now. I know you were born here.
Right.
Yeah, is it true? I heard like in the American law, like America does like the official language is not a specific language.
No, we don't have an official language as a country, no, but the predominant language is English.
Exactly, and it does not have like an official religion too, which I love. You know, you can worship whatever you want.
Right. Well, but let's understand one thing. So let's go back to the Mexican example.
Yes.
So Mexico became an independent country. The Mexican independence movement began in 1810. And in 1821,
Yeah.
there was an agreement between the Mexicans and the Spanish. It took them 11 years of war, right?
Wow.
And you've seen the Mexican flag, right? Which is green, white, and red with an eagle in the middle.
Yes.
That is called the flag of the three warranties. And the warranties are this: green is the independence of Mexico,
Yeah.
red is the union between the Spaniards and the Mexicans, and
Beautiful.
white is the Catholic religion as the official religion of the country,
Yes.
which Mexico had until 1857, when we had a Masonic war. The liberal Masons won, and then they did away with education, religion, all of that became part of the state. So now, to this day,
Yes.
churches in Mexico of any religion cannot marry you. They
Oh,
can have a ceremony, but it has no legal effect. You have to go to the civil registry to get married.
I see.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's
Different.
very different. And the reason for that is because the Catholics were very afraid of the Protestants, which
Yeah.
were the Americans, right?
Sure.
And so they, back then, the new Americans were not too concerned about the religion because they were all Protestant. But they weren't all one religion. They were, there were Calvinists and there were Lutherans. And so they were all Protestant, but they're all Christian.
Yes.
So that's why historically we have that difference.
Wow. That's wow. That's very interesting. I love history. I
Yeah.
really understand to understand someone, or like why they are behaving a certain way. It's very important to know, the country and the history of the country. That's really
Right.
beautiful. Um,
But unfortunately, I will say this: if you see what happened January 6th, right, and the people storming the Capitol and all this nonsense,
oh
I
yeah,
think I think unfortunately there is a lot of uneducated, very easily manipulated people in the United States.
a lot.
Okay,
Crazy. Yeah.
and this happens in all countries. In Mexico, we try to keep everybody uneducated so we can manipulate them. That's part of the thing,
The whole world,
right?
especially
And so
especially third world countries.
but even in the United States, which
Yeah.
is still to this day the most powerful country in the world, we manipulate people.
Mm,
People don't know, right, half
true.
of what goes on. That's
Uh,
just the way of the world. It's very sad, but it's true.
it's so funny, especially in Trump's era. It's crazy. Whatever Trump says, like for example, you can drink the bleach against COVID, and people actually like in Google, because I like to watch the news. They're like people literally looking up is it good to drink it. So whatever he
Right.
says, it just surprises me that there's like people who actually take this stuff seriously.
Well, the Trump years were very good for me economically, right? And because so much work with immigration, we
Yeah,
did a lot of media work. And as you know, I am a very liberal person, right? Like I went to the Obama inauguration and I donate to the Democratic Party. So I'm not, I'm more on the other side of the political spectrum,
sure.
but I am a person that's a professional. And
Mm-hmm.
so for us, it was very beneficial. The Trump years were good. And the people who actually voted for him are the ones who got screwed. So that just goes to show you, right, that a lot of his policies affected a lot of these people, but they don't get that.
I
Because
know.
this
That's funny. But to be honest with you, like personally, when he was a president, I loved watching the news just to see what he did today. So it's always, it's like it's funny. Like he always does something new that surprises you. So like, okay, let me watch. Trump said this. Trump just said, I don't know. He made up like a country name that it does not exist. I forgot what was that, but it's always something.
Well, I think that somebody asked me, this was just last week. Last week, somebody said to me, well, I don't understand why you don't like Trump. And I said, I don't hate anybody, right? But how can I support somebody who said that Mexican people were rapists, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm Mexican and I find offense with that, right? And so then this person said to me, like, wait, he said that? And the other person in the car with us is like, of course he said that. That's not even a question. He certainly said that. So there's a lot of people
Don't
who
even know.
don't even know all these things, right? And then that's what I'm talking about. And I'm not just gonna pick on
Sure.
people who are lean more Republican versus Democrat. I think that all of us in any country that we're in,
Definitely.
we really need to understand. So Gauguin, the painter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Gauguin was very eccentric, and he'd always have weird names for his paintings.
Yeah.
And he has one that's it's in French, obviously, and I think it is "Tu venons nous, qui sommes nous, où allons nous?" Right?
Yeah.
Who are we? Where
Yeah.
do we come from? Where do we go?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I love that because that's such a lesson.
Beautiful.
Like in order for you to know who you are and
Yeah.
where you are going, you need to know where you come from. Where were you before? Right?
Nice.
So why do we have policies that protect minorities in the United States? Because in this particular country, we have abused, beaten, killed minorities systematically, right? So for you to say that, oh, that doesn't happen anymore, well, I wish it didn't, but it does, and that's why we have the rules that we have. But if
Exactly.
you ignore these things, right,
Definitely.
how are you going to advance?
Exactly. That's why the Black Lives Matter movement. I always see what's going on, and I understand that first you need to admit. Like many people say, well, this thing don't it doesn't happen. What you're talking about. There's no racism anymore. But you're right. If we don't actually face the reality, then it won't be solved.
Exactly. And you know what? That is the hardest things, I think, for human beings, which is to admit that we are wrong and
Exactly.
to say, you know what? Okay, fine. I see the error of my ways. I can do better. I also like this quote that says, I cannot change what I have done,
Mm,
right? But I cannot change the story, but I can change how it ends,
you're right.
right?
So
So
exactly.
you have until the day you're gone from this earth, you have a chance to change, to be better, to do better, to look at what you've done, even if you've done horrible things, because human beings are not one way. This is how we started our talk, right?
Exactly.
Human beings are not one way. We are multifacetic.
Of course.
So I think that's important.
You cannot just be labeled by like one thing. This person is just goes A to B straight. you know, we can be so many things. You can be at some point in your life that horrible person, and then you become that nice person. you know, like karma. Sometimes, you know, like for example, when you are younger, for example, me, when I was in my early 20s, you just try this, try this, try this. And then as you grow up, let's say, for example, if you hurt someone, then you get hurt. Then you're like, oh, okay, I got it. I'm not going to hurt anyone anymore.
Right.
And then whatever you do, life teaches you a lesson, then you change. So that's how I think, like sometimes we are a certain way and then you can be different, then you can be different.
Right.
You know,
I go
uh,
ahead.
your story reminded me, do you know Trevor Noah?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, like his mother. I know, I don't know if you read his book, but
No, I haven't. I've watched him many times, so I know about the book. Yeah.
I love him. You know, I read his book. So his mom, she was a secretary too, and she learned by herself, and she, you know, like I always, when I see someone who's successful, I know that he got it from someone. It's not like genetic, but you saw like a good role model. Like for example,
Right.
Trevor Noah, like his mom, when she asked him to write letters, like in very nice formal way, and that's how
Uh-huh.
he became who he is. I don't know, like I know this is like out of the topic, but I wanted to tell you that before when you told me about your mom. I was like, oh my God, it
Right.
reminds me of someone.
No, but you know what? It is true because, for example, I grew up in an environment where all all of my cousins all spoke English, right? So everybody spoke Spanish and English. And then when I was about 7, they all started learning French. So then they would talk about me in French. So that's why I learned French,
Alors tu peux parler
right?
français aussi. Toi,
Non, je parlais pas très bien, mais je parlais. Mais j'oubliais, j'oubliais. Non, non, je parle français parce que j'utilise beaucoup le français dans le travail. Parce que nous faisons beaucoup de travail avec des compagnies étrangères, donc
un peu français.
je dois parler français.
Et même l'espagnol, c'est un petit peu comme le français. Un peu.
L'espagnol, c'est comme le français parce que c'est une langue latine, comme l'italien, le portugais, le romanien.
Exact. Par exemple, je peux parler un petit peu en fait en espagnol.
Mhm.
El verbo dormir, c'est dormir. Quiero dormir, c'est je veux dormir. C'est like very close.
Right. But for example, I've been learning Romanian, and it's the closest to Latin, right? And there are words that it's very interesting to see how they evolved from Romanian to Italian to Spanish, right? It's the same word, but they have different things.
Wow. Do you have an idea? I'm just like being curious right now. I know that Spanish, Italian, French, and Portuguese, they all,
And Romanian, the
and,
five, the five Latin languages.
oh, they come from Latin. So
Yeah.
wow.
So, for example, from Latin first came Romanian, and Romanian is the purest because they're the furthest out. They're kind of isolated.
Yes.
So, for example, fi,
Yeah.
that means to do, right? In
Ah,
Romanian. In Italian is fatto, like fato,
it's closer.
right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Fatto, facere in
Yeah.
Romanian. Chi mai fac, right? What are you doing?
Oh.
So fatto in Italian, in Spanish is hacer,
Ter.
in
Sí.
French is faire,
Ter.
and in Portuguese is fazer. So it's the same word. It just evolved in such different ways, right?
Wow.
Um,
Um, um, wow, I love languages too. I learned Spanish when I was in Morocco, and I just love it. And the fact that they come from Latin, I tried to learn Portuguese, like a little bit. I mean,
uh-huh.
kind of like Spanish, just fascinating. I love it. It's beautiful.
And we have words in Arabic as well in Spanish, because remember, you know, the unlike other countries,
Yeah.
Spain was ruled by half of Spain was ruled by
And
the Arabs for 800 years, right? So we have words like pantalon,
mm-hmm.
ojalá. Like ojalá means
Inshallah.
hopefully, right? Like
Yeah.
ojalá, ojalá. So
Yes.
you know, it's Spanish is different because we have that influence. Like Romanian also has words that are very Slavic, like da. They don't say si, they say da.
And
So yeah,
like in Arabic, we say sukar, sukar. I think
okay.
has zaytun. like citron.
Okay.
Like how do we say it in Spanish?
Aceituna. We say aceituna and we say azúcar.
Oh wow, look at that.
Yeah.
So impressive. Wow. It's beautiful how the word is like due to travel and words just very linked. You would find
Right. That's what I mean in the sense that you only if I leave our audience with something today,
yeah,
I think what I wish they get from our conversation today
yes.
is the fact that you can really achieve whatever you really have a full interest in achieving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if you're successful at at it. The important thing is to try it.
Sure.
Because many times, more times than not, you will be successful. I think that we are the ones who stop ourselves from that success because success can be scary. What's scary about it is the risk of failure,
Yes.
right? Um, that's why you see the ugly guys asking out the pretty girls, and they always say yes because nobody else asks them out,
Oh my God,
right?
that's very true.
So that's why it's important. But you as a human being, especially as a man, you
Mhm.
have to bring something to the table. And it doesn't have to be millions of dollars. It has to be a sense of purpose. I
Definitely.
find for myself that having a sense of purpose, like being a good father, being a good boyfriend,
Yeah.
being a good businessman, being honest,
Yeah.
um, those things make my life very happy.
Beautiful.
So,
And I know that you're very busy and we are taking a lot of time of your precious.
no, it's okay.
But if I ask Sal today, are
Yeah.
you truly happy?
Yes, I am very happy. I am a happy human being.
And how
Can I be happier? Yes. Of course, we can all be happier, but
and what's your c'est quoi votre recette? Or what's your recipe? Your if you want to just share something about how to be happy, maybe fulfilled. So what do you think?
I think I think that you have to accept your life the way it is. I think people miss the forest for the trees. Okay. Um, when I look at my life from the outside looking in, I feel very blessed. I have a job. I have my own company. Having my own company allows me to take the whole afternoon off and spend it with my daughter. And then I can work from 8 to 10, right? I don't want to work from 8 to 10, but I took off from 3 to 8 to
Beautiful.
hang out with her, watch TV, do a little homework, drive around, talk about life.
Yes.
And I think it's a true blessing. I have people in my life who love me, right? That I love them. And
Nice.
I'm talking not just about my significant other, but I'm talking about my friends. They
Friends.
call me, my family check on me. I
Beautiful.
think the small things in life is what make everybody's life happy.
Beautiful. My second question, have you ever, like, let's say someone who's watching us right now, who's going through like
Hmm.
tough times, have you, like, in your life, did you have a period of stagnation, of like being down, and how did you deal?
Absolutely. When I was young, I don't have my dad that I can call and ask for advice. All my family's in another country. I've been sick. I got COVID. I was by myself for a month,
Oh my God.
not knowing if I was going to live or not. So I've been through some very rough times. I've had no job. I've been homeless at a point in time in my life.
Wow.
All of those things have happened to me. I used to work so hard. I didn't know. If you see my Instagram, I just posted a picture of me, my first job selling things in the street, you know. So I've had very much success and I've also been in the poorhouse. So I've had very dark moments in my life. I've had breakups where I don't know if I'm going to survive because I'm so heartbroken, right?
Yeah.
And the important thing is to always remember as long as you're breathing and your heart is pumping, you're here and you just need to take that as a win and then continue on to make that life better every day. And it's okay to not feel okay.
Yeah, right.
Things aren't magical. Life isn't perfect. So just take your time to get there.
That's very inspiring. The reason I asked you because I personally
Mhm.
through some dark times too, and thank
Yeah.
now I'm back and even better than before. And that's why I decided to open this YouTube channel and Instagram, just to share. Because sometimes what happens when you are in the middle of darkness, sometimes you
Hmm.
start to lose hope. You're like, am I ever gonna get better? Is
Right.
it for me? So that's why I asked you, because most of us, I tell people, like on Instagram, we just post our best moments, our best faces.
Of course.
I mean, I wouldn't have a video of me crying that I because I lost my job or I was sick. I mean, nobody
Right.
wants to be vulnerable. Um, but
But let me interrupt you for a second. I want to see something that, at least for me, was very important, right?
yeah,
So, when you have somebody that's really inspiring in your life, right, that you want them to be in your life, you have to make a change in yourself, right?
hmm,
So, if you don't take responsibility for your own actions in your failures, right?
of course,
I'll give you a specific example. Let's say, like, I got in a fight with my girlfriend and I hurt her, right?
yes,
Whether she's right or not, or it doesn't matter. The point is, if I took an action that hurt that person that I love, and I don't take responsibility and think to myself, man, I really messed that up.
hmm,
It's not that important to see if I was right or not, right? I mean, assuming that this was something that was a misunderstanding, right?
yes,
You have to take responsibility, because if you don't, then you're not going to grow, and that's never going to get healed,
bravo,
right? Because you're going to have that resentment. So you have to say, okay, fine, I did not intend to do this, but
yeah,
I take responsibility for the fact that I did do it.
yeah.
Because how are you going to move forward if you don't even take responsibility for what you're doing wrong in your life? So I'm just saying that as a general
Thank.
proposition.
I always tell people the same thing. So you know what? Let's say we all have flaws. Nobody is perfect. So if we don't take responsibility and then you just play the victim, when are you gonna improve? When are you grow ever? You
You're
know,
not.
you will not. So that's why I find it like now, I like it, like even if I'm speaking or doing something at work and there's a mistake, for me, it's just an opportunity to grow. I'm like, oh, okay, that's, yeah, I did it. Sorry, I work on that. So that's how you grow. Imagine, even like in my previous jobs, I've done so many mistakes, and I'm glad I did, and I'm glad somebody pointed that out and even maybe yelled at me at that time. You know, I didn't like it at that time, but now I am who I am. I mean, I'm still working on myself. I'm trying to be. We are always,
Right.
striving to
We all are. We all are. I certainly am. I'm trying to be a much better human being every day.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so last question, and then
Yeah.
I'm sure you have so many plans and
Yes.
um, like how did you like I was really interested in learning about becoming a lawyer. So how does it work? Like, for example, let's say someone like me, I have like an MBA whatever in HR. So do like anyone who's interested in becoming a lawyer, so do you have to study?
Anybody can. Anybody can. And if you're in the United States of America, right, you have to have an undergraduate degree, and then you apply to law school, because law school is studied as a doctoral program here. It's 3 years long. And then you have to take a bar exam in whatever state you live in. Some will give you reciprocity, and you can practice federally once you have your license. But essentially, anybody who has an undergraduate degree, you go to one of the accredited law schools. There's about 250 schools, and
Yeah,
those are all ranked. But ultimately, what matters is that you get your education, and
yeah,
that you get your license, and you can practice. And you can do, as an attorney, anything. You can teach, you can work for somebody, you can have your own thing, you can be a lobbyist, you can do pretty much anything you could think of. So I
beautiful.
highly recommend it.
Thank you. Because especially when I worked in HR for the past 4 or 5 years,
Mhm.
one of the reasons I went back to school here is to study law, like employment law, because sometimes you're facing some very difficult situations
Mhm.
and everybody come to you. Like I was working at Hilton, like we had 300 employees. Raja, do
Right.
you know about this law? I'm like, I get back to you. So yeah, so that's a very interesting field. Otherwise, just last advice to anyone who's watching us. Mr. Salvador, Senor Salvador Cicero?
Well, my advice is just embrace who you are. Embrace who you are and do what you want to do for yourself because this is your life. And it doesn't matter what it is that you want to do. If you want to paint cars, go do that. You want to be an attorney, become one. And that as long as you do what you love, you're going to fulfill your life and you're going to be okay economically. Because if you're happy, remember, we spend most of our days working, so you have to be happy. You have to go be excited that you're there and not just have a check. Sometimes we all had that job. I had jobs I hated, but they helped me get to where I am today, which is doing what I love to do and having the freedom to do what I want.
Beautiful. Oh my God, such an inspiring story, Salvador.
Thank you, my friend.
Or Sal, thank you so much. Muchas gracias. Merci beaucoup.
Okay.
And
Con gusto, con gusto. Best of luck to all of the people watching us. And I'm always available. Reach out.
thank you so much. Thank you, Sal. Have a great night. And hopefully we talk to you another time.
Anytime. Happy to do it.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.